Hey guys, it's Graham. What's cracking? Let's talk about my fourth reading of Catching Fire by Suzanne Collins. Seriously, one of my favorite books and a trilogy that I would give the very rare designation of just about perfect. But before we get too far down that rabbit hole, I'm not overly worried about subscribing, but do check the links in the description and find my books on Amazon and buy one and get me out of the truck because it's Thursday and I've already worked 45 hours and I have another 10 or 12 hour route ahead of me. Let's not kid ourselves. It'll be a 12-hour day tomorrow. This train will never stop unless all of you buy my books and read them, because you will fall in love with them and you will tell all your friends, and that will be my saving grace. Anyway, Catching Fire came out in 2009. It followed up a gangbusters successful showing by Suzanne Collins in The Hunger Games in 2008. This was not her debut novel. She wrote another fantasy series called Gregor the Overlander, which I tried reading the first one just because of how much I enjoyed Hunger Games and Catching Fire. So I was like, oh, she's got this other series. I'll try that out. It was one of those middle grade fantasy series that, for my money anyway, it didn't really hit the four quadrants. It didn't work for older readers as well as younger. I guess she's had success with it in the younger reader sector, but it has not been my bag, baby. So I dug into the Hunger Games, loved that one. I was definitely in that wave of sensationalist readers, and then when Catching Fire became available for pre-order and all that stuff, I was like, what on earth is she going to do to follow this up? Because she couldn't possibly send her back into the game. She's, according to the rules of the world, she's already been exempted from that. Ha ha ha. Well, little did I know. But at the time, I was a book blogger in 2009, and I was getting advanced copies from publishers from time to time. Who was it? Delacorte Press ended up sending me an arc of The Maze Runner. That was the other big one that was coming out in 2009. Like the three big YA books everybody was looking forward to was Maze Runner and Leviathan by Scott Westerfeld, and Catching Fire, because of how well Hunger Games had performed. And while I was out bugging editors for arcs, I fired off an email to Scholastic, just shooting my shot, saying, hey, can I get an arc of Catching Fire? And never heard back from them. I figured he was like, all right, well, get shafted. And then suddenly 2 weeks before the book was due to come out, I get this package in the mail, and it's a paperback of Catching Fire. It's like, holy crap. So I burned through that book. All told, it probably took me like 6 hours of reading. And I'm texting my best friend. He's stoked on it. Man, I'm up all night. I think I finished it at like 2 or 3 in the morning. I had to go to work like 3-4 hours later. And this was before I would mainline caffeine the way that I do now. I was 25. I still had energy back then. So I was strung out that next day, but it was so worth it. I just remember turning the pages over and over in the first third. She divides all of her books up into these 3-act formulas because she's a screenwriter and that's her experience. But I was just turning the pages and burning through the next chapter. I was like, where's it going to go from here? What's going on? Obviously she's facing threats from the government because she's become this propaganda figure. Propaganda and mob mentality and how to get large groups of people to do things that you want them to do is a central theme in this series, even more than the violence and the imperialism and the totalitarianism. And imperialism is the wrong word. They're not expanding the empire. They're maintaining and controlling what they have. But propaganda and being able to sort truth from lies is it's just a huge centerpiece in this series. And for Katniss, the focal character through whom we get to experience this, she has to learn the hard way how that works. And she's got some catching up to do with PETA, because he he was able to figure it out before she did, but he's not cunning and cutthroat the way that so many other people in this world are. He's got a high emotional intelligence, but he doesn't have the propensity for violence, and that can work against him. I still remember when that reveal came, that they were doing the quarter quell, and they were reaping the new group of tributes from the existing pool of victors. I was like, oh, holy crap, here we go. And suddenly the games themselves became a character. There's a concept called setting as character, and it would be kind of beyond the scope of the video for me to go in extensive detail about it, but it's more than just how the peculiarities of a setting affect what happens in the story or how the story is told. It's when the setting itself really exerts influence on the characters and their decisions, and the setting can then also undergo transformations and arcs and serve different purposes the way that different characters will as the story goes on. So in the first book, the games were kind of static, they were baseline, they were normal. It was just a regular games. It's the 74th games. We've done this 73 times already. Here's how it's going to go down. And then they change because the end goal, what they need to accomplish, changes. At the end of the 74th Hunger Games, Katniss set something in motion that she didn't intend to. All she was trying to do was survive and save people who she cared about at the same time. And she ended up accidentally becoming the face of a rebellion because there was this undercurrent of discontent among the people, but they needed a focal figure to unite behind. And then she did, and the war gets underway. The rebellion happens, or sparks and uprisings and all of that stuff. And now, instead of using the games to control the population in a general sense, the president goes to use the games to quash this rising rebellion. It doesn't work by the end of the second book, and now it becomes a matter of all-out war. And I remember before the third book released, before Mockingjay came out, thinking the games are still going to have a role to play, but there won't be a traditional reaping and tributes and all of that stuff. Once again, Katniss is going to go back into the games in some way, and President Snow is going to have to be a player, a tribute in the games. And that's the way that it played out in Mockingjay, only this time the arena itself was the Capitol. The game makers lent a whole bunch of their unused and undeployed weapons from the game. They gave them to the peacekeepers to deploy around the city because they knew that the rebels were closing in, and so the city itself, the capital, wherever it was in the Rocky Mountains, maybe it's Salt Lake, maybe it's Denver, who knows? It became the battlefield. This setting changed, and the way that the characters interacted with it changed in a meaningful way. Man, I could pull this book apart one chapter at a time and share different ideas on it and stuff, and hey, maybe I still will whenever I get the freaking time to do that. But I'm just constantly impressed as I read these books every couple of years. I'm impressed at the wisdom that she showed in exploring these questions that she asks with this book. If there's something wrong going on a grand scale, what can you do about it? And you can try to use martial power, I guess. That's what the Capitol does in the books. Or you can use fear, or you can use social pressure, or you can use all three of these things. You can bring them to bear in different ways, and you can convince people that hey, all you got to do is go on with this, and maybe nothing bad will happen to you, and as long as you understand that it never gets worse than this, then you'll be fine. But all it takes is for the calculus to affect the wrong person at the wrong time and in the wrong way, and that can all be flipped on its head. What is your government based on? 250 years ago, it was allegedly based on the consent of the governed. And when it's working right, that should be good enough. But hey, we live in interesting times now. It's curious to see what it'll be based on in the future. But will we ever end up in a Hunger Games type situation? Well, heck, I hope not. But that isn't to say that we couldn't find some way of improving things as they stand now. Stories like this at least help you to see how things get to be a certain way. And it takes real wisdom to not only notice that, but then turn around and disseminate that idea to the masses in a way that they can understand. Which is why propaganda and messaging and all of that is such an important central theme to this story and to this book in particular. Anyway, those are my rambling thoughts on Catching Fire. Love this series. I'm going to read Mockingjay next week. And then the week after that, book 5 drops. Let me know what you guys think. Till next time, drive safe. See you out there.